Good day, students. It is time for the fourth installment of this series, where I attempt to give you an overview of each unit's eidolons and my recommendations on whether or not they are worth the Stellar Jade's investment. Going on a vertical investment on your account might not be the best option, given the number of good units released in recent patches. If you are looking to enhance your established roster of units the smart way, this is certainly a series to watch. Sitting firmly at the top of the meta, let us take a look today at the Harmony Cast's Eidolons and how they can further cement themselves at the core of everyone's account. Just after we go over the obligatory disclaimers. Please note that these recommendations are based on my personal experience with the units, how they perform at E0, and what they lack in their base form. As such, I have formulated this guide based on the importance of each eidolon in fixing a particular unit problem from its base kit. This guide is highly subjected to subjectivity on my end, even though I have tried to keep it as objective as possible. Therefore, if you feel a certain eidolon works better for you compared to what I am about to mention, that is entirely your prerogative, and each and every one of you is entitled to play the game as you want. As always, every piece of content in this game can be fully cleared with E0 units without issue. As I did in the previous videos of this series, I will look briefly at each unit's strengths and weaknesses in the next section, so you will better understand the analysis of each eidolon in the following section. Also, each eidolon will be analyzed, considering you already had the previous eidolon and are debating the investment needed to secure the one in question as well. This is why you will see some units have their E1 not recommended, but their E2 recommended. I will not go over the E3 and E5 eidolons of the units, because these are just extra levels for all your abilities on each unit. And of course, all of them are worth getting because they are just straight-up damage buffs for each of the units. I will just leave you with a note on which unit is applicable, so you can know which one of the two will provide the most damage. Finally, let us go over what you should be looking for in units on this path. For Harmony units, you want to aim for the eidolons that provide your unit with additional ways of buffing your team, or that will improve the already existing buffs in their base kit. Also, eidolons that provide you with energy are always great, so you can smooth out your rotation. Asta. Great option for most teams as her buffs are team-wide, and they are also appreciated by each type of damage dealer. However, she will be used best in DOT teams. She is also a good firebreaker through her skill. Her attack buff lacks consistency as her stacks drain pretty fast at base level. She has energy issues as she wants to use her ultimate consistently for the speed buff, and if played as a firebreaker, she also wants to use the skill each turn. Hanya. Single target focus buffs, compensated by the value of said buffs. One of two existing units that can generate skill points for your team consistently. The fact that she is single target focused is a weakness, as top support units these days are able to buff multiple team members simultaneously. Also has some energy issues like Asta. Tingyun. The highest amount of energy regen provided through her ultimate amazing attack buff as well is skill point positive and also has a sizable damage percent buff. Suffers from the fact that her buffs are single target focused and for some reason has the aggro of a destruction unit as she will get hit more than the other Harmony units combined. Yukong. Amazing crit buffs and some respectable damage of her own, as well as decent toughness damage. Highly recommended to be played manually, as she requires a specific setup to be able to capitalize on her buffs. Bronya. Still the only unit in the game with 100% action advance, a mechanic which is appreciated by most damage dealers. Amazing damage buff from her skill, and a good attack and crit damage buff from her ultimate for every member of the team. She sees most use in crit-based compositions. Not that great skill point economy in her base form, as she wants to use her skill every turn to keep boosting your carry and advancing it forward. The one-turn damage buff of her skill will not work with some units like Jing Yuan's Lighting Lord, as it will do its damage after Jing's turn has ended. Requires a decent amount of speed tuning, and you want as much crit damage as possible. Ruan Mei. Currently, she is the strongest support unit in the game, even in her base form, as her kit is simply overloaded and you can pair her with literally any unit as her buffs and effects can be used by everyone. While you can pair with every character, not everyone will like the increased break status the enemies receive from her, as they will want to consistently break the enemy shields to trigger their own abilities. She also requires quite a bit of investment in her stats, especially in break effect to maximize her buffs. Sparkle. Like Ruan Mei, she has plenty of universal buffs, making her a bit more universal compared to Bronya, but like her, she will see the most use in crit-oriented teams. Is completely SP positive thanks to the increased skill points bar and the refund from her ultimate. Like Bronya, requires the same amount of speed tuning and crit damage from your gear. Asta. E1. The additional bounce is nice as it translates to more shield breaking as well as the chance to get one additional charge of her talent to increase the attack for your team. Decent pickup. E2. Improves her charge economy, which is always appreciated to get more consistency on her attack buff. Also a good pickup. E4. The additional energy provided by this one will fix her energy issues, meaning she can consistently use her ultimate to have your team in a pretty constant speed buff. Amazing pickup. E6. More charge stack quality of life. This one, combined with the first and second, will guarantee your attack will remain close to its highest level at all times. Great pickup as well. Hanya. E1. The additional action advance will, over the course of the fight, provide Hanya with more skill points from the additional actions she will take, but it could also be the difference between squeezing an extra ultimate buff out of her or not. Good pickup. E2. More speed for her means more actions for additional speed being transferred to the target of her ultimate. Decent pickup as well. E4. This one is more of an overall damage increase for your carry, as it can enjoy the ultimate effects for one additional turn since it doesn't really alter her rotation. E6. An overall damage increase for the team as the burden damage buff can be triggered by anyone. Decent pickup for maximizing her buffs. Tingyun. E1. Adds a new layer of buffs she can provide in speed, and a decent one to boot. Great pickup. E2. Any type of energy gain is appreciated in general, as sometimes 5 energy will be the difference you need in getting your ultimate on time. Also a good pickup. E4. Improves the damage buff from Benediction by a good margin, although this buff was not really that impressive to begin with. Therefore, this one is not recommended. E6. Improves the energy gain from her ultimate, which, for the same reason as her E2, is also recommended to be picked up. Yukong. E1. While it adds another layer of buffs to her, just like Tingyun's E1, this one is restricted to a 2-turn duration for the entire fight. Therefore, it is not recommended due to the low duration. E2. Decent pickup as it allows her to get her ultimate a bit faster, and she needs to keep using her ultimate as often as possible to maximize her buffs. E4. A bit of an improvement, but although her damage is fairly decent if built accordingly, it is also not on DPS or sub-DPS levels. Therefore, this buff is also not recommended if you intend on using her as support. E6. Amazing improvement to her basic rotation, allowing you to use your ultimate and get the desired buffs even if you didn't use your skill prior to this. Highly recommended to smooth her playstyle. Bronya. E1, possibly the highest priority one to get out of the standard unit's Eidolons. This one eases up the SP deficiency Bronya has, especially if you are a lucky individual by nature. Highly recommended to be picked up. E2 allows you to build less speed on your carry, as between the action advance provided by her and this speed buff, you will get plenty of actions even with attack boots on your carry. Great pickup. E4. Fairly interesting one that may have value if you are up against units weak to wind in order to speed up the shield breaking. But perhaps the biggest appeal to this one is the attack being counted as a follow-up. This brings her a new use in follow-up compositions, especially with units that are counting on the amount of follow-ups the enemy is hit with. Therefore, this one is not recommended for most teams, but is a great pickup if you plan on using her in a follow-up composition. E6. This one opens new doors for her, as the buffs provided by her skill are now available for all units to capitalize upon, even Jing Yuan's Lighting Lord. This turns her from an already pretty generalist supporter to a truly Swiss knife of a harmony unit. Ruan Mei, E1. Arguably the strongest E1 available in the game at the moment, as the amount of damage you will get from this for your entire team is absurd, and it scales exponentially with any other source of defense reduction or ignore you may have. Highly recommended to be picked up. E2. Nice attack buff for the entire team, although it is restricted by the need to have the enemy broken. This one is especially appreciated by DOT compositions, so if you plan on using her with one, this is a good pickup. For other team archetypes, this one can be passed. E4. This one will help you when building Ruan Mei by lowering the break effect needed from your gear in order to reach the required threshold to maximize her buffs. But it is not recommended, as you can easily reach the respective bar with just your relic stats and a break effect light cone. E6. Massive damage buff for her, as the talent will now go to 320% every time you break an enemy with any member of your team. So if you want to see more damage out of your support than your main damage dealer, this one is a great pickup. Apart from her personal damage buff, the extra turn on her ultimate translates to more damage for your entire team, especially when combined with her E1. Worth it for the ultimate extension alone. The added nuke is just the cherry on top. Sparkle, E1. Good attack buff with a great uptime as it's tied to the ultimate duration, which also gets one additional turn. Is a decent uptime which further improves her buffing potential, especially not in quantum-heavy compositions. In mono-quantum teams, this one may see some diminishing returns to the oversaturation of attack percentage, her talent, and external sources. It's still a good pickup even in this case for the ultimate extension alone. E2. Pretty much the same as Ruan Mei's E1, but with a slightly higher defense reduction value if you have all her talent stacks, and this one should also have a higher uptime as it's tied to her talent and not to her ultimate like Ruan Mei's is. Amazing pickup. E4. More skill points. However, it could be argued that not even Daniel needs that many, so this one doesn't have that much of a value right now. E6. More crit buffs, not just for the target of her skill, but for every single ally while under the effect of her ultimate. It turns into an absolute buffing monster for dual crit damage teams, but if you're running a hypercarry composition, this one loses a bit of value, as you will benefit mostly only from the increased crit value of her skill. Therefore, this one is a good overall pick, but not a mandatory one if you do not have the units to capitalize on it. Hopefully, this video brought more harmony to your understanding of the strengths of each unit belonging to the path, as well as their weaknesses, and can start planning ahead for which one of them to target when they rerun, or when they will spook you after a 50-50 loss. I would also love to hear how you plan to proceed moving forward. Are you planning on starting to vertically invest in your harmony units? And if so, how far are you planning to go, or how far have you already gotten? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I am Professor Veritas Ratio, and remember, stay smart and sexy.